Unexpected encounter. Julian Reeves straightened his custom Italian tie as he surveyed the grand opening of Lumiere, his newest investment in Boston's competitive restaurant scene. At 38, Julian had built Horizon Technologies from his college dorm room into a multi-billion-dollar empire. And these side ventures were merely ways to diversify his substantial portfolio. "Darling, this place is absolutely magnificent," purred Vanessa Clark, sliding her manicured hand along his arm. Her sleek black dress complemented her role as one of New York's most celebrated fashion designers. They'd been dating for 6 months, a relationship that worked perfectly for Julian's lifestyle. Vanessa understood the demands of success and never questioned his 70-hour work weeks. "The chef studied under Gordon Ramsay," Julian replied, nodding toward the open kitchen where culinary magic was unfolding. Securing him was quite the coup. Julian guided Vanessa through the crowd of Boston's elite. Accepting congratulations from various business associates and local celebrities, this was his element: calculated conversations, strategic networking, all the satisfying hum of another successful venture coming to life. "Mr. Reeves, everything is proceeding splendidly," reported Winston, the restaurant manager. "We're at capacity with reservations booked solid for the next 3 months." Julian smiled. "Excellent. Any issues I should be aware of?" "None whatsoever, sir." The kitchen staff, as Winston's words died, as his eyes flicked to something beyond Julian's shoulder. Julian turned, following Winston's gaze, and the world seemed to tilt beneath his feet. There, at a corner table, partially hidden by a decorative column, sat Sophia Winters, his ex-wife. The woman who had walked out of his life 14 months ago after their brief, intense marriage. She wasn't alone. Sophia was with an older couple, her parents, Julian realized, and she was visibly pregnant. Very pregnant, Julian. Vanessa's voice seemed to come from a distance. "Is everything all right?" He couldn't answer. Sophia hadn't noticed him yet, her attention focused on the menu as she laughed at something her father said. She looked different. Her chestnut hair was shorter, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. And there was a glow to her that transcended the standard description of expectant mothers. "Who is that woman?" Vanessa asked, her tone sharpening. As she followed Julian's transfixed stare, before Julian could respond, Sophia looked up. Their eyes met across the crowded restaurant, and 14 months of carefully maintained distance collapsed in an instant. Her smile froze, hand instinctively moving to her rounded belly in a protective gesture. "My ex-wife," Julian managed, his voice barely audible over the restaurant's ambient noise. Vanessa's grip tightened on his arm. "I see. And the baby?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, as Julian calculated the timing in his head. Sophia had left him in April of last year. It was now June. The size of her belly suggested she was near term. "I need to speak with her," Julian said, already moving toward Sophia's table. Ignoring Vanessa's protests as he approached, he saw panic flash across Sophia's face. She whispered something to her parents, who both turned to look at him with expressions that ranged from surprise to unmistakable hostility. "Hello, Sophia," Julian said, his normally confident voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "It's been a while." Buried Truth, Sophia's father, Gerald Winters, rose immediately, his protective stance unmistakable. "Julian," he acknowledged coldly. The older man had never approved of their whirlwind romance or marriage, believing Julian valued his company more than his daughter. "Perhaps this isn't the best time," Sophia said quietly, her hand still resting on her belly. The simple gold band she once wore was noticeably absent from her finger. Julian felt Vanessa approach behind him, her presence adding another layer of tension to the already strained encounter. "I just wanted to say hello," he managed, though. His eyes remained fixed on Sophia's pregnant form. "I didn't know you were back in Boston." 6 months now," Sophia replied, her professional composure, honed from years as a pediatric surgeon keeping. Her voice steady despite the visible discomfort. In her eyes, "Dad, Mom, it's okay. Would you mind giving us a moment?" Her parents reluctantly moved toward the bar, her mother squeezing her shoulder supportively before leaving. Vanessa, sensing the private nature of the conversation, murmured something about checking on their table and gracefully withdrew, though Julian could feel her curious gaze from across the room. "You look well," Julian said awkwardly, gesturing to the empty chair across from Sophia. "May I?" She nodded, and he sat down. Acutely aware of the whispers their interaction was generating among nearby diners, Julian Reeves, Boston's most eligible bachelor after his divorce, conversing with his very pregnant ex-wife, was fodder for gossip columns. "Congratulations on the restaurant," Sophia offered, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "I didn't realize. It was yours when my parents suggested it." Julian studied her face, searching for answers to questions he wasn't sure how to ask. "Sophia, the baby, ... double quotes, is it yours?" She finished for him, a flash of hurt crossing her features. Would it matter if it was? The question struck him like a physical blow. "Of course it would matter," he replied, leaning forward. "Sophia, if I had known you would have what?" She interrupted, her calm exterior finally cracking. "Suddenly found time in your busy schedule for a wife and child? You made your priorities very clear during our marriage, Julian." Before he could respond, his phone buzzed insistently. Julian instinctively checked it, a habit developed over years of business emergencies requiring immediate attention. Message from his business partner Oliver Blackwood was marked urgent. "FDA investigation brewing. Call immediately." Julian felt caught between two worlds, the crisis at work demanding his attention, and the personal revelation unfolding before him. He hesitated just long enough for Sophia to notice. "Some things never change," she said softly, gathering her purse. "This was why I didn't tell you, Julian. Your work will always come first." "Sophia, wait," Julian said, reaching for her hand, but stopping short of actually touching her. "Please, I need to understand what's happening. The timing. Is the baby mine?" She met his gaze steadily, and in her eyes he saw a mixture of strength and sadness that made his chest tighten. "Yes," she admitted finally, "the baby is yours. I found out a week after I left." The confirmation hit Julian with unexpected force. He was going to be a father, a reality he had never seriously contemplated during their marriage. Always believing there would be time for family later, after the next product launch, after the next expansion. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice barely above a whisper. "Because I watched you miss our anniversary for a board meeting," Sophia replied. "Because I spent our last Christmas alone while you flew to Tokyo for a merger. I couldn't raise a child with someone who wasn't truly present." As the weight of her words settled between them, Julian's phone buzzed again, more insistently this time. The two worlds he had kept separate were now colliding, forcing him to confront choices he had been avoiding for years. Hard choices. Julian silenced his phone, a gesture that surprised even himself. "I'm listening now," he said, his voice carrying a gravity that hadn't been there moments before. Across the restaurant, Vanessa watched their interaction with thinly veiled concern, while Oliver's urgent messages continued to pile up unread. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Julian Reeves was ignoring the demands of Horizon Technologies. Sophia's expression softened slightly at his unprecedented action. "It's not just about listening, Julian. It's about priorities." Absent-mindedly traced circles on her belly. "The baby kicks whenever I'm stressed. He's doing it now," Julian echoed, the reality of having a son suddenly crystallizing. "Yes, a boy." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. "Due in 3 weeks." The restaurant's ambient noise faded as Julian processed this information. In less than a month, he would have a son, a child he hadn't known existed until minutes ago. The thought was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. "I want to be involved, Sophia," he said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "I know I wasn't the husband you needed, but I want to be a father to our son." Sophia studied him carefully. "Parenting isn't something you can delegate or schedule between meetings, Julian. It's all-consuming and messy and completely unpredictable." "I understand that. Do you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, your life looks exactly the same as when I left. Different girlfriend, same priorities." She glanced meaningfully toward Vanessa, who was now engaged in conversation with Winston. Though her eyes frequently darted in their direction, Julian followed her gaze. Suddenly seeing his carefully constructed life through Sophia's eyes, the designer girlfriend who fit neatly into his schedule. The restaurant opening that doubled as a networking event, the constant interruptions from work that he typically prioritized above everything else. "I've built something significant," he said defensively. "Horizon employs thousands of people. That comes with responsibilities." "And what about your responsibilities as a father?" Sophia challenged. "Well, those always come second to the company." Before Julian could answer, Vanessa approached their table, her patience evidently exhausted. "Julian, darling, we should really make our rounds. The mayor just arrived." Smile was strained as she acknowledged Sophia with a terse nod simultaneously. Gerald and Elizabeth Winters returned, creating an awkward tableau of past and present colliding. Gerald placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Everything all right, sweetheart?" The tension was interrupted by Julian's phone vibrating again, this time with a call rather than a text. Oliver's name flashed on the screen. With 4 sets of eyes on him, Julian felt the weight of expectation from different directions. Each person representing a different aspect of his life, demanding priority. Vanessa expected him to fulfill his obligations as host. Oliver needed his immediate attention for what was clearly a significant company crisis. The Winters family collectively hoped he would once again choose work, confirming Sophia's decision to leave him. And Sophia herself watched him with guarded eyes that had once looked at him with love, waiting to see if he had changed at all. In the 14 months since their separation, Julian took a deep breath and made his choice. He declined the call. "Vanessa," he said evenly, "would you mind handling the mayor? I need some time here." Surprise flashed across her face, quickly replaced by hurt and anger. "Of course," she replied coolly. "Take all the time you need to sort out your ... priorities." She walked away, her posture rigid with displeasure. Turning back to Sophia, Julian spoke with quiet determination. "I'd like to talk, properly talk, without an audience. Would you be willing to meet tomorrow?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded slowly. 1 o'clock. It's a cafe near Massachusetts General. My shift ends at noon. As the Winters family prepared to leave, Julian remained seated, watching as Sophia carefully maneuvered her pregnant form from the chair. The reality of impending fatherhood and the consequences of his past choices settled over him like a weight. His phone began vibrating again. Oliver's third attempt to reach him. This time with Sophia already walking away, Julian answered, "This better be important, Oliver. The FDA is investigating claims about side effects from Revitalize," Oliver said without preamble, referring to Horizon's breakthrough anti-aging drug. "Someone leaked internal documents suggesting we knew about the cardiovascular risks before approval." Julian felt the blood drained from his face. If true, the implications were catastrophic not just for the company, but potentially for patients who had trusted their product to crises, both demanding his full attention. 2 parts of his life he could no longer keep separate. The awakening Julian barely slept that night. The FDA investigation into Revitalize dominated an emergency board meeting until 3 a.m., with Oliver pushing for an aggressive counter-strategy that would protect the company but skirt full transparency. Throughout the tense discussions, Julian found his thoughts repeatedly drifting to Sophia and the son he would soon meet. "You're distracted," Oliver observed as the other board members filed out, his tone sharp with disapproval. At 45, Oliver Blackwood had the calculating precision that had made him invaluable as Julian's second-in-command and dangerous as an adversary. "We're facing a potential class action lawsuit that could destroy everything we've built, and you're somewhere else entirely." Julian rubbed his tired eyes. "I'm processing a lot right now, Oliver. This is about your ex-wife, isn't it?" Oliver's network of informants had already alerted him to the encounter at Lumiere. "Julian, whatever personal drama you're dealing with needs to wait. Horizon comes first. It always has." The words echoed Sophia's accusations, hitting Julian with uncomfortable clarity. "What if that's the problem?" he said quietly. "What if always putting Horizon first is exactly what's wrong?" Oliver stared at him as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. "Without Horizon, you're nothing. We both know that." The statement hung in the air between them, a truth Julian had never questioned until now. His identity had become so entwined with the company that he couldn't distinguish where one ended and the other began. By noon, Julian had reviewed the leaked documents about Revitalize himself, his stomach sinking as he recognized their authenticity. The cardiovascular risks had been flagged during the final trial phase, but Oliver had led the team that reclassified the data to secure FDA approval. Julian had signed off on the reports, trusting his partner without proper scrutiny. People might have died because of his negligence. Julian arrived at the cafe near Massachusetts General 15 minutes early, choosing a quiet corner table. When Sophia entered, still in her hospital scrubs, her pregnant silhouette unmistakable, several heads turned. She navigated carefully between the tables, her exhaustion evident despite her composed demeanor. "You look tired," Julian said as she lowered herself into the chair across from him. 36-hour shift, she replied. Triple trauma came in around midnight, 2 children and their father. The matter-of-fact way she described saving lives while heavily pregnant made Julian's corporate crisis seem suddenly smaller. Here was a woman who had rebuilt her life after their marriage, continuing her medical career while preparing for single motherhood. "Sophia, I need to tell you something," Julian began, leaning forward. "I've been doing some thinking, and you were right about me, about my priorities." Her eyebrows raised slightly, but she remained silent, waiting. "I'm facing a significant crisis at Horizon," he continued. "One that could potentially destroy everything I've built yesterday. That would have been my only concern. Today all I can think about is that I'm going to have a son in 3 weeks." "Julian, please let me finish," he said gently. "I've spent years believing that success meant building something bigger than myself. I missed opportunities to build something more meaningful with you because I couldn't see past the next quarter's projections." Sophia's professional composure cracked slightly, her eyes softening. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to be present for our son in a way I never was for you. I want joint custody, co-parenting, whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm willing to make significant changes to make that happen." "Changes like what?" Sophia asked cautiously. Julian took a deep breath, like stepping down as CEO of Horizon. Her shock was evident. "You can't be serious. A company is your life." "That's exactly the problem," Julian replied. "Can't be my life anymore or not if I want to be the father our son deserves." Sophia studied him, searching for signs of insincerity. "What about Vanessa? Is the FDA investigation that's all over the morning news?" Julian felt a flicker of surprise that she knew about the investigation, before remembering her father sat on the hospital's pharmaceutical review board. "Vanessa and I are done. That became clear last night," he said. "As for Horizon, I'm turning over everything I know about Revitalize to the FDA investigators. There were warning signs that got buried, and I can't be complicit in that cover-up." "Won't let you walk away easily," Sophia warned. "It's not from the company or from the scandal." Julian nodded grimly. "I know. He already threatened to have the board remove me if I don't fall in line with his damage control strategy." Sophia's hand unconsciously moved to her belly, and Julian noticed with a start that the baby was visibly moving beneath her scrubs. Without thinking, he reached across the table. "May I?" he asked hesitantly. After a moment's pause, Sophia nodded, guiding his hand to where their son was most active. The firm kick against his palm changed something fundamental in Julian's worldview. "Made my choice, Sophia," he said, his voice unwavering. "I just hope I haven't made it too late." New beginnings 3 weeks later. Julian paced the hospital corridor outside the maternity ward, his usual composure completely abandoned. The polished businessman was nowhere to be seen, his expensive suit replaced with rumpled khakis and a wrinkled button-down, his normally perfect hair disheveled from repeatedly running his hands through it. "Mr. Reeves." A nurse appeared at the doorway. "She's asking for you." Julian entered the delivery room hesitantly. Sophia lay on the bed, her face flushed with exertion, but wearing an expression of serene exhaustion. In her arms was a tiny bundle, wrapped in a blue hospital blanket. "Come meet your son," she said softly. The world narrowed to this single moment as Julian approached, and looked down at his child for the first time. The baby's eyes were closed, his tiny features peaceful in sleep. One miniature hand escaped from the blanket. "He's perfect," Julian whispered, overwhelmed by a surge of emotion he'd never experienced before. Absolutely perfect. Would you like to hold him? Sophia asked. With trembling hands, Julian accepted his son, cradling him with a mixture of terror and wonder. The baby weighed almost nothing in his arms, yet Julian had never felt anything so significant. We still need to decide on a name, Sophia reminded him gently. They had been cautiously rebuilding their relationship over the past weeks, navigating the complex territory between ex-spouses and soon-to-be co-parents. The hostility had gradually given way to a tentative partnership focused entirely on their child's well-being. What about Ethan? Julian suggested, recalling the name from their early marriage discussions, conversations he'd participated in half-heartedly while distracted by work emails. Ethan Reeves Winters. Sophia smiled, surprised he remembered. I always liked that name. Outside in the waiting room, Gerald and Elizabeth Winters waited alongside Julian's mother, Patricia, their first time in the same room since Julian and Sophia's wedding. The family dynamics remained tense but civil, united by the new life that connected them all. What none of them knew was that while Sophia was in labor, Julian had been on a conference call with Horizon's board of directors, executing the final phase of his plan. Oliver had moved aggressively to push Julian out once he'd gone to the FDA, but had underestimated just how thoroughly Julian had documented everything. I'll resign as CEO, Julian had told the stunned board, but only after Oliver's immediate removal. The evidence I've provided proves he deliberately misrepresented safety data. I take responsibility for my failure of oversight, but I won't be the scapegoat for his deliberate deception. The board had little choice but to accept his terms.
Ow.
Julian would step down as CEO, but remain as chairman, working reduced hours and with significantly less day-to-day involvement. His chosen successor, Horizon's current chief operating officer, Diana Porter, was already preparing to take over. Now, looking at his son's peaceful face, Julian knew he'd made the right decision. The company would survive, perhaps even thrive, under new leadership, but these precious early moments with Ethan could never be recaptured. Your parents are waiting outside, Julian said, carefully returning the baby to Sophia's arms. Should I invite them in? In a minute, Sophia replied. I wanted to talk to you first. She adjusted the baby against her chest. These past few weeks, seeing you prepare for Ethan, watching you stand up to Oliver and the board, it's shown me a different side of you. Julian sat on the edge of the bed. I meant what I said at the cafe. I'm not the same person I was during our marriage. What? No, Sophia acknowledged. And I'm not suggesting we try again romantically. We are both different people now. I think we might be better co-parents than we were spouses. Julian nodded, feeling a mixture of regret for what might have been and hope for what could still be. I'd like that. And I promise you, Sophia, Ethan will always be my priority. I believe you, she said simply, the words carrying more weight than any business contract Julian had ever signed. As they welcomed their families into the room, introducing them to little Ethan James Reeves Winters, Julian reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past month. He had lost his position as CEO and his relationship with Vanessa. The company he'd built was weathering its most significant crisis. His reputation in the business world was complicated by whistleblowing against his own company. Yet watching his mother tearfully hold her grandson, seeing the guarded approval in Gerald Winters' eyes as the older man observed Julian's gentle handling of the baby, Julian knew he'd gained something far more valuable than anything he'd lost. 3 days later, as Julian helped Sophia and Ethan settle into her apartment now equipped with a nursery he'd helped prepare, his phone rang. Diana Porter was calling with news. The FDA had cleared Horizon's other products for continued distribution while focusing the investigation solely on Revitalize. The company will survive, Diana assured him. Different, perhaps smaller initially, but with its integrity intact. Your decision to come forward probably saved Horizon in the long run. Julian thanked her and ended the call, turning his attention back to helping Sophia organize the baby supplies that had overtaken her living room. In the nursery, Ethan slept peacefully in his crib, blissfully unaware of the profound changes his existence had inspired. Good news? Sophia asked, noticing Julian's expression. Yes, he replied, but it can wait. He gestured toward the sleeping newborn visible through the nursery door. Some things are more important. As if on cue, Ethan began to stir, his tiny face scrunching up as he prepared to cry. Julian moved toward the nursery without hesitation, ready to comfort his son. For the first time in his adult life, Julian Reeves understood what real success looked like, and it had nothing to do with the empire he'd built. It was right here in this moment, beginning anew.